Greetings Internet, I'm your host AVCF and welcome to the Loading Time Game channel. Another Hidden Time episode, and now we're going to make a quick travel to the Sega's golden age, focusing on the classic Galaxy Force, a shmup that is still a reference on the genre, so let's cut the chase and go for it. If it's true that Sega was facing a fierce competition on the domestic home console market, it's also true that the company ruled the arcades during the same period, delivering loads of great games. Part of this success was a line of games that would be later known as superscalers, or in a quick explanation, games that ran under a technology that utilized sprite, scale and rotation effects to display a simulated 3D effect. The superscalar tech ended up being famous under games like Outrun, Afterburner, and Red Mobile. Also known as the game that presented Sonic to the world for the first time, and it's also the tech behind Galaxy Force. A quick note about the game's title. Despite that 2, there's only one Galaxy Force game, being that 2 a mark for a revamped version rather than a true sequel, and the only difference between the versions are 2 extra stages and minor in-game adjustments. Alas, Sega already did the same confusion before with Afterburner. Contrary to many earlier shmups who usually were all based on space stages, Galaxy Force featured each stage as an entirely different planet, a design that would later influence various other shooters, like Star Fox 64 for example.
This baby can take temperatures up to 9,000 degrees.
Back to Galaxy Force, its game design is really simple and works more as an amusement ride than a pure game, as the player's life meter truly works as a counter that marks the remaining playtime. On the other hand, all in-game stages share the same structure. First an open area, then a cavern, and finally a tunnel that leads to the stage boss, a gigantic core that supposedly must be exploded to end the stage. And I say supposedly because the stage ends even if the player doesn't do nothing, exposing the amusement ride nature of Galaxy Force. The arcade success surely has led to several ports, being the Sega Genesis one of the most famous. Even though the 16-bit machine couldn't handle the fantastic arcade graphics, CRI, this version's developer, delivered a port that at least did a decent enough job to represent the arcade experience. The thing is that I have one more part to cover, since Sega surprisingly got one for the Master System, a system that was far away from what Galaxy Force demanded. So how this port performed? Not so bad really. First thing to notice is that this version has lost one stage from the original, as well as the life counter was changed in favor of a shield meter, which was a good thing from the player's perspective, since now the game really counts the hits against the player, making the game a bit more fair. Since the Master System controller only has 2 buttons, so no speed control anymore, with the buttons serving as shoot and missiles. As a direct conversion would be impossible, Sega opted to rebuild Galaxy Force into something similar enough, withdrawing all sprites and tiles from scratch. The problem is that, as with the arcade graphics, Master System just couldn't handle similar action intensity, resulting in a very choppy performance, so that the control even felt somewhat laggy sometimes. This also contributed to make the game even more difficult. And still about the game's difficulty, the tunnel sections aren't just hard, they are truly hell, since the controller's pad over-responsiveness turns the steering almost impossible. Not to mention that we must steer at the same time that we must avoid all enemy shoots. That's brutal. One last curiosity, Master System's Galaxy Force has 2 endings, with a ridiculous demand to achieve the true one. As the game says, the player must beat all stages in one sitting, without using any continues, which means without losing a life during the whole game. If this type of challenge is your thing, good luck man, I'm out. And that's all for today. So, Galaxy Force is not one of the worst Master System games, but if you want a suggestion for a better shooter, I would recommend R-Type or Fantasy Zone. These are better options. So, thanks for the audience, until the next time, and goodbye.